Hey there, Sanathorn. Nice to see that you've written another set of essays for us. Let's take a look at what you did here. This is the one about food. Is it better for the environment and economy if we only eat local food? Let's see what you said. Experts throughout both the developing and developed world have debated that domestic food consumption would be the way to improve the environment and economy. Personally, I strongly agree. This essay will discuss this issue, get rid of about, using examples to demonstrate points and prove arguments. Okay, fine, clear, no problems. On the one hand, there is ample evidence to support the advantages of consuming local products. The central reason behind this is twofold. Firstly, it does not require long-distance transportation, CE here, and without the A. This is the way to reduce the cost of food and decrease the air pollution which is caused by vehicles. Secondly, it is a good solution to increase income for local farmers and promote the local economy. For example, recent empirical research by the government demonstrated that there was a rise of per capita income after developing domestic food policy. Okay. On the other hand, although there is a case for imported commodities enriching some groups of people, the impact of domestic products consumption cannot be overstated. This is largely because most people need cheap food with good quality. For example, if everyone uses the imported products, the deficit balance trade will happen. I don't know, what do you mean deficit balance trade? You mean deficit trade balance? I'm not really sure what you're trying to say. Thus, it's possible to take beyond doubt that consuming local food is better in the economy and environmental aspects. From the arguments and examples given, I firmly believe that people should consume local food. It is predicted that there will be increasing growth in the local food market. Okay, so I was a little confused about this essay. I understood this. This was fine. But this paragraph completely confused me. I didn't know what it was about. I read the entire paragraph and I didn't know if you were supporting local products or foreign products. I was just very confused here. Now, even in this paragraph, look at this. You talk about the domestic products, consumption, deficits. So I get the sense that you're trying to support the economy. But then you talk about the economy and environmental aspects. But the environment has nothing to do with this paragraph. I mean, there's nothing at all that you say that is related to the environment here. So let me give you some suggestions on how you could have developed this paragraph. Sorry, not this paragraph, but this entire essay. So you were in favor of, you didn't say, okay, let me try it another way. You said that you personally strongly agree that it's the way to improve the environment and the economy. So there are a lot of ways you could have done this. First of all, you could have spent one paragraph talking about how local food only is beneficial for the environment. Another paragraph about talking how local food only is better for the economy. Okay? That's one way you could have done it. Another way you could have done it is you could have said why this is not good for the environment and the economy in one paragraph. So you could say what the negatives of such a trend would be. And then you can go on to say that despite the negatives, the positives of eating only local food are certainly greater. All right? Now, another thing you could have done is you could have said, well, yes, I think it's better for the environment, but I don't think it's better for the economy, or vice versa, okay? So, yes for one and no for the other. And then you could have developed a paragraph around each of those central ideas, okay? So those are some of the ways you could have done this. I understood this paragraph, but I really got to be honest with you, I just don't know what you were trying to say here at all. And so a couple of things are happening. Basically, you have a problem with coherence and cohesion because it wasn't really terribly coherent. And then, of course, your task achievement because it just creates some confusion and I don't understand like what you're trying to get across essentially, okay? Let's see. It does feel a little short. I'm fairly certain, without even doing a word count, that it's over 250 words, but it did feel kind of short. So think about what other kinds of illustration, what other kinds of support and extension of some of these ideas you can provide in order to make it feel a little better developed. Okay, yeah, but like I said, for me this was the weakest part of this essay. So let's take a look at your task 1. All right, the bar chart shows information about, the bar chart shows chip sales by 2 manufacturers in France over the 1-year period of 2017. Okay, that's fine like that. The selling range of Intel was not around, but it was between 30 to 130,000. Don't put the S. The only time we put the S is if there's no number before the word. Starting from 50,000 in January, there was a slight increase to nearly 100,000 in March. Then, sales, S, no the, dropped dramatically to 30,000, which is the lowest point. After that, the number of chips, S, sold surged to reach a peak of 130,000 in June and declined significantly to the lowest point again in July. The number of chips sold was steady at around 70,000 in August, September, and October, and around 100,000 in November, December. For AMD, it is obviously seen that there was no chip sales in June, and the least number of sales, S, was in November, which was not more than 5,000. No S again. In July, AMD made around 3 times more sales than Intel. Overall, it can be seen that Intel sold more chips than AMD, except in February, July, September, and October. Okay. So, it's okay. You've done everything you're supposed to do for the most part. And what do I mean? I mean that you've done the basic things you're supposed to do. You have an introduction, you have an overview, and you've mentioned some of the key information. All right? So in that respect, it's fine. Where the problem arises is with the selection of your data. So look at this. You spent this enormous amount of time covering like month to month for Intel. And then for AMD, all of a sudden, it's like you just picked a few random months and there wasn't really any real logic behind what you selected. So look at this. You start with AMD, and rather than starting in January as you did with Intel, you suddenly start talking about June, then you talk about November, then you talk about July, okay? And that's pretty much it. And then you have your overview. And your overview honestly should have been in another paragraph. It shouldn't have just been here tacked onto that last sentence, because it doesn't make it clear that this is your overview. So you have tons of information about Intel and like really, really very little for AMD. You need to balance this more out. In a year chart like this, I always want to know certain points. I want to know the beginning, I want to know the end, and then I want to know some of those key points in the middle. And for the points that you can't really talk about, because there are just so many of them, use a range. I thought what you did here was a great idea, but I think you could have used it elsewhere. I think you could have used a range like this really effectively to talk about some of those figures for AMD, okay? So you could have certainly talked about that. Like the first half of the year, look at AMD. You could have said that with the exception of February, when it outsold, when it was its highest sales of the year, all the remaining sales for AMD were below 50,000, with June recording no sales at all. So that is a really much more meaningful depiction of this data than just kind of selecting, a couple of months here and there. But what was really strange, as I said, is that you went to a lot of trouble to go into detail for Intel, but almost none in comparison for AMD. All right, so I want you to be careful about that. Try using some of these ranges like this you could have, where else could you have done it? You could have done something similar here. So you could have said that Intel as well. It started at 50,000 and it showed its highest peak in June at, actually no, before you go to that. So it started at 50,000 and then for 3 of the 6 months was between 50 and 100,000. Okay. And the exceptions were April when it was around 30,000 and in June when it was around 100 and what is that? 30? Around there. So you could have done stuff like that rather than giving so much information. Just try to use some of those ranges when you have a lot of information to cover, but you certainly can't cover it in the length of a task 1. Okay. Don't forget to separate your overview so that it looks like an overview and not just an extension of your paragraph. So with that, that's pretty much the end here. Some of the grammar, I think I already corrected it all. Then the sales dropped dramatically. Your vocabulary was good. You used things like drop dramatically, decline significantly, but some of it was awkward, like there was no chip selling. So be careful about some of that. Some of that wasn't really accurate. Okay, so go ahead and correct these, return them back corrected, and let's see your next set of essays. Good luck.